this is a difficult story to really talk about. It has to deal with the shooting that happened in New Zealand, but there's something that we here in this country can learn from, especially from the reaction and political action that was done by the New Zealand government. So New Zealand just recently passed a ban on a range of semi-automatic rifles and large ammunition magazines. This came just 6 days after the mass shooting at Christchurch. Has been hailed as the fastest response by a government ever after a tragedy. In the United States, especially conservative politicians, have blocked even moderate gun control for 25 years, and New Zealand's swift action was greeted as a powerful inspiration and reminder how far our country is. So, just to give you guys an idea, Sandy Hook happened 6 years ago, and this was quoted by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Sandy Hook happened 6 years ago, and we can't even get the Senate to hold a vote on universal background checks. And so this is a pretty devastating. That's pretty devastating to really think about it. This is what what leadership looks like. David Hogg, one of the students from the Parkland, Florida, who founded the March for Our Lives movement for gun control after the shooting at their school last February, tweeted sharing a video of the announcement by the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. But however, pro-gun activists here in the United States has said that New Zealand's aggressive action to ban the ownership of previously legal guns and enact a mandatory buyback would never be viable here in the United States. The U.S. isn't New Zealand, Dana Loesch, a prominent gun rights activist and National Rifle Association spokeswoman, tweeted, "They do not have an inalienable right to bear arms and self-defense. We do." Rebecca Peters, who helped lead the successful campaign to reform Australia's gun laws in the 1990s, said she believed New Zealand's government action was the fastest response ever. And it took the British government 7 months after the massacre of 16 children in Dunblane, Scotland, in March of 1996 to announce a partial ban on handguns, which the parents of the children had demanded as part of the Snowdrop campaign. A few other issues I want to bring up. The United States' last substantial action on gun control in 1999 was a federal ban on military-style assault weapons, but the ban was written to expire in 10 years and did not require Americans who already own military-style guns to give up their weapons. It simply tried to regulate the manufacture and sale of new guns. When it expired in 2004, an in-depth evaluation of the loophole-ridden legislation found that it could not be clearly credited with any of the nation's drop in violence. The consensus among Democratic politicians was that the ban had backfired politically against their party and that gun control was not a winning issue for the American left. They largely abandoned the issue for more than a decade. So here's the thing. In the United States, especially for our viewers who live overseas or right up north in Canada, we have gun shootings every day. There's always a shooting, and it takes a very special kind of massacre to get national attention, but always the aftermath of every shooting here in the United States is thoughts and prayers.
Now's not the time to talk about gun control.
Now's not the time to talk about it, and we'll work on legislation, or we could do something really lackluster, such as the infamous rally that Obama did, where he was saying the people need a vote, the Senate needs a vote, and the House needs to vote. And when it came down to vote, the House and Senate chose to do nothing. And I think now Americans are just tired of it. And seeing the New Zealand government react to this horrific tragedy shows us, again, how far behind we are and the influence the NRA has over a lot of our politicians. There needs to be some form of regulation and background checks, because anybody in this country can buy a weapon. Anybody. And because we have a lack of real good health care in this country, even the mentally ill can get a gun. And I think it's frightening because, I mentioned this on a show a while back, but it can happen to anyone, a shooting, at any place, at a movie theater, at a mall, at a school, where you work at. I mean, it can happen. It's a reality. And, you think that it won't happen to you, but it will, especially if you live in this country, and our political leadership will not act on it. And any time there's a politician that's going to act on it, they're usually demonized by the corporate media, or usually they use that statement of a politician who's calling for gun control to they'll have a little debate, but then nothing will be solved. They'll always just say this: the gun rights are saying one thing, gun regulations are saying another thing, and we need to have a real conversation and a real vote on how we're going to deal with these mass shootings in this country, especially in the United States.
So I want to just very quickly, this issue in America is a trench warfare style issue. For it to ever get brought up at all, someone has to die somewhere. Usually a dozen people have to die somewhere. Usually they have to be kids or maybe elderly or maybe like, you know, a kitten orphanage or something, because we already have a massacre every day, which is just 4 people getting shot, 4 more people getting shot. We're tired of that. America's like, it's not exciting enough. That's not even worth it to bring up the issue, because they happen every day. You have to have 50 people have to get killed, a bunch of rich people have to get killed, a bunch of people in a synagogue have to get killed.
Or a senator has to be killed or shot.
Yeah, exactly. So... Yeah. So going through that article, it's such a... The reason I also say trench warfare again is a lot of people have to die for it to get brought up so that nothing can happen. And then in addition, that you hear, it's like when... It's like someone, you bring up another country. Well, America's not that country, so even though it succeeded there and there's a path to have it succeed there, they're not us and we're not them, so it's not going to work because reasons. And then they'll go with the Second Amendment, which the way that it's interpreted presently isn't that... is a newer way to interpret it. The Supreme Court didn't always used to interpret it the way they did, but it took getting certain key Supreme Court justices in power for the current way people look at this. And again, the thing I always that everyone always brings up, well, I'm protecting against tyranny, so any amount of suffering.
You're not going to outgun an Abrams tank or shoot down a drone. Look, I served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. No ragtag militia is going to take on the United States military. You're just not going to win. And anytime you see somebody taking on the military or the police force, for example, when there was a shooting a while back at a Walmart many years ago, and this guy and his girlfriend were shooting up the entire this Walmart. I believe that's what it was, and it was caught on camera. Their last final moments were in a shootout with the police, and they were being overwhelmed because the police were shooting right back at him. And the two assailants, the assailant's girlfriend shoots him in the head, and then she shoots herself. That's what's going to happen. Your fancy fight against the police or the military, you're not going to win. And this whole idea about the Second Amendment, about defending yourself against tyranny, no foreign country in their right mind is going to invade the United States, because you want to know what's going to happen? Conventional militaries don't work anymore. We have these things called atomic weaponry that vaporize cities. So there's not going to be this great little underground resistance that you see in the movies. Get Hollywood out of your mind. People are really dying here in this country. We are dealing with it every single day. And when Australia and Britain and now New Zealand passing these gun laws, did their countries automatically become dictatorships? Is Pol Pot and Stalin and Hitler now walking around saying, hey, you can do whatever we're going to do whatever we want, and we're going to oppress you? No. What they're doing is they're taking action to making sure that no more of their citizens are dying. But here in the United States, we have political inept action.
Yeah. So I think on top of that, another interesting thing to go just along with that is that I would expect if their tyranny ever was to take foot, the people with the guns are probably going to be the foot soldiers of that tyranny. It's not going to be the other way around. Like right now, who do we think, if there was someone that would commit tyranny or pull tyranny or dictatorship, Trump is a good candidate for that. Perhaps he's not the most perfect. He's not really, I don't think, really smart enough to, maybe the people around him, maybe they can do it very well, and that's more likely. Who are they aligned with? Oh, right, the people with the guns. So it's almost as if the tyranny you're protecting yourself from is the thing that you're going to be a part of, most likely. In addition, when you ask people, what do you have the guns for? To protect my rights. What rights? You don't have habeas corpus anymore. Look at all the rights that everything, all your calls are being listened to, your emails are being listened to, everything's being listened to. The police can just go and blow up a house just because they think there's something might be dangerous there. They're serving arrest warrants with SWAT teams. At what point did you defend your liberty? It seems like the countries that have the most defensive liberty are the ones that don't have weapons, because people's archaic idea that the government is just going to have, like, well, if they have these semi-automatic assault weapons with a kit that can turn it automatic, that'll make the... No, that's not how it works. Kid already said the military is too advanced for that. The police are too advanced for that. You have National Guard, Homeland Security. How many people are out there that really have stockpiles of guns that are ready for this? How much training do they do? I've seen a number of them in action. They're usually drunk and they can't hit anything.
They're either drunk, obese, and they're
right,
people.
That's your army.
They're people, especially a lot of these people who think that the government's going to oppress them. They're people who live in a fantasy world who never had what it took to really join the military or the police, and so or do anything.
they're protecting themselves from an eventuality that if it did happen, they would be supporting to defend rights that they've already lost.
Right. And Paul, I know you want to add some comments.
Yeah. So I've lived in countries that don't have a constitutional amendment guaranteeing the protection of firearm ownership. And then we talked a little bit about interpretation of the Second Amendment. First of all, it's called an amendment. Sorry to steal a Jim Jeffries joke, but if you can't change something that's called an amendment, what can you change? The way it's worded, I don't know why people always forget this, the first half of it is almost always omitted. It's a well-regulated militia being necessary for the protection of a free state. We did not have a standing army in this country until well after the Civil War, right? We relied on state militias that were regulated, and the people needed to provide their own weaponry to build this militia. So I would interpret, personally, the Second Amendment as absolutely every American has the right to keep and own guns as long as they're a member of the National Guard.
Yeah.
Like, if you are part of your state National Guard, it's allowed.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you don't have that right.
Yeah. It's like, can we at least get to the point where we're like, hey, because when the people, well, you'll say guns kill people, and then they'll retort back, yeah, but cars also kill people. Yeah, but you have to license a car, you have to get a driver's test, you have to pay these fees. You know what, the way that we have everything organized now, I think there's a very easy solution for all of this. Once we take out the healthcare industry, the insurance part of it, with Medicare for All, we just get those same people to do insurance on all the guns. And then every single gun, you have to insure every single gun you have. We make bullets 500% more expensive. They also have to be insured. And then every single thing that every group of people is attacked, every compensation for loss, that's the pool of money that the insurance has to raise against. And I'd like to see people with 100 guns keep those 100 guns when they can't afford those 100 guns, because now they're dealing with something even scarier than the government: insurance.
So there are a bunch of arguments that pro-Second Amendment people, pro-guns right people will make that I think are ridiculous and fallacious on their face. So one of the arguments that I will often see is, well, if you make guns illegal, or if you make, regulations around guns, criminals will still have guns. Criminals will still find a way against them. So it's like, okay, well, what you're saying is laws are ineffective for preventing criminals from doing some specific thing. So are you saying we just shouldn't have laws because we can't prevent people from doing...
People still murder, and they're murderers, so we shouldn't have laws against murder.
Yeah, I guess it's not effective.
It's not effective.
Dumb. That's
people still do it.
It's dumb, and I think we have a chance during this election cycle, especially during the primaries, to elect a progressive candidate, Bernie Sanders, just going to throw his name out there, who was actually in the past called out these mass shootings and saying that we need real effective legislation. We need to have real strong political leadership. But also it's going to require all of us as citizens and people to step up. Enough is enough. We deal with this every day. Let's look at how the New Zealanders handle it, the Australians and the British, how they handled it.
Just like that.
Just like that. They said enough's enough, and they held their government accountable. We got to hold our government accountable too, but it's a monumental task, because we got to deal with also the impact of the lobby groups and the large industrial facilities and large industries and money in Wall Street and the big banks, because we have the thing called Citizens United, and the NRA as a lobby group has a lot of power. And if we want to implement real political change, we got to get money out of politics, and we need an active political movement in this country.
Well, and so it's also a high bar, because it's in the Constitution, which inherently makes it difficult to change.
I understand that, but I mean, if we at least as citizens constantly hold our government officials accountable and actually electing people that can actually bring in change, we could bring in some kind of new reform and some sort of accountability. It can be done, but it's a big task, and it's going to require people to actually get up and get involved.
Exactly. And one of the things I wanted to mention is AOC points out how long it's been since Sandy Hook, but I kind of go back to one of the first big mass shootings that got national attention was Columbine, which is coming up on 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And still nothing's been done.
Mm-hmm. So here's the other, I think I'm going to play, maybe not quite a devil's advocate as from the story before, but the catch to all this is that there are over 300 million guns already in the country. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, we've lost the proliferation war already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can buy back 100 million guns and it would make absolutely no difference. You could buy back 200 million guns, it would make absolutely no difference. That on some level the NRA has won, because of the proliferation of how many guns. The only other country that has as many guns to people, I think, is Somalia. I could be wrong. And it's like, good luck getting all 300 million back. Good luck getting 200 million back when we don't even digitize. That's why I'm like, as much as I would not like to, but my position is that so a lot of this is already a ship that sailed, and the most that we can do is literally just make everyone that has a gun pay a lot of money for them, so that people that can't afford them have to give them up.
Absolutely.
And, you know, if, again, make ammunition way more expensive. They can shoot as much. They're going to run out eventually and have to buy more. You don't have to do that with a gun. Make very expensive insurance. Make it so that you have to basically have a second mortgage to have a bunch of guns. That would... I mean, I don't know what else you can do without either new justices on the Supreme Court or an amendment. And even on that, as much as everyone wants something to be done about the gun issue, it's a lot like cannabis. It's everyone's like third or fifth issue, and a few people it's their number one issue, but it isn't the majority of people's number one issues.
Hey, did you like that video? Well, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification, hit that thumbs up icon, so that way you know when we upload more content to the Heartlands Media YouTube channel. So Daniel, what else can we do to really put everything into this?
Well, we've invested everything we have into this company, so you can help us out by going to our Patreon page and giving us the equivalent of going to Starbucks once a day, which I think is about $50. Please help us out. We want to build more and grow. We will see you in the next video.